Julie Sirius Talis Moon, Jupiter Hour, Venus Day. And the Moon is in 3 degrees Taurus, applying to square Pluto. Uranus around Sedna and Alcyone. Mars applying to approach Chiron with Aries. And this is Mars, Chiron, Aries definitely has to do with something to do with facial physiognomy. And physiognomy was basically a science that is very associated with eugenics and colonialism, but it is also the science. I remember when my grandfather basically was in the death camps. He had to go in and out of the ghetto, and he had to, and his resemblance to the Nazis was something that assisted him, or somewhat assisted him, to go in and out and bring food. And so around trauma there can be ability to identify the facial physiognomy associated with life events or psychological events, and that's been something that's been kind of like passed down the lineage that is there around trauma. Like we have non-volitionary suddenly observations and so on and so forth. There's something that comes up with physiognomy that that may be troublesome, and I don't know what rules the nose, because I think it's Jupiter or Mars itself, and how should I say that? There seems the wound around the sense of self of people expresses as bullying people for their particular features that show of character, like the nose. During the Renaissance, they would paint people. People would ask to be painted with a larger nose to show that they are of character. Whereas during the Second World War, it was actually Jewish printing houses that printed the Nazi propaganda, including the satire about the kind of like the rich Jew and so on and so forth, and the physiognomy attached to that. Simply put, Eve Braun family came from a printing house, and the printing house worked with the Nazi party, so they were printing basically the Nazi propaganda. And yeah, that's just how it was. And so this juxtaposes to certain time that particularly the generation of the Pluto Capricorn and a younger generation of the Pluto Capricorns, a lot of them are lost to bullying, and they would literally, a lot of them would jump off of high buildings in particular. And Saturn rules high buildings or skyscrapers. So I think about this Mars, Chiron, Aries conjunction squaring the last decan of Capricorn. And the last decan of Capricorn has to do with allocating resources and wealth consolidation. Now, if I think about the type of wealth consolidation during the Second World War, I think about the printing house that printed Nazi propaganda, painting the Jewish physiognomy in a way that would cause bullying, and while they were the ones profiting off of basically the Holocaust that had to do with trafficking ring, and Eva Braun basically had to, she was probably raped until she had to seduce Hitler, so that she will be at least raped by Hitler and not raped by the other Nazi members, or and then when she made Hitler um, be fond of her, then they would get cyanide and they would be able to commit suicide. Uh, because for her reality it was like she was raped anyway, so she rather had been raped with the people that destroyed the people that allowed the woman to be raped. And all that is in a semisextile with Sun, Mercury, and Beta Persei, which is turning rapists into stone, but it also has a currency and wealth confiscation facet to it. It was the wealth confiscation of the Jews that built the death camps because they allowed women to be trafficked. So there is this wonder around the physiognomy. This young generation, particularly if the Pluto last degree is Capricorn, I guess, that are bullying, that are like the young people that are bullying, and it's kind of like they're bullying. These children could have long nose and they'll be bullying a person for their nose. And they're active. It can be the case that they were raped by, let's say, one of the traffickers, and they target and harass people. Now, a lot of the children from them would jump off high buildings because of bullying. And this deacon of Capricorn is sextiling the sun, is sextiling the Beta Persei, reminding us that those that bully in order to traffic women, and those that try to bring basically to rape women or stuff like that, or to normalize rape of women and bullying them and humiliating them for being raped, are have these cahoots with both the children that jumped off the building because they didn't want to be those children, but there can be children that were raped by these people, and therefore they were mind controlled to harass. And this all is squaring the physiognomy thing, which is like, if I think about my grandfather that also had a Jewish nose, but he resembled the Nazis because he came from Ukraine, and the color palette was closer to the Irish and the Polish, and then he could get food. My color palette actually resembles more the Middle East, and I live in Israel, and there is risk of concentration camps like here in Israel. And so the square relations between this last deacon of Capricorn, which could be the raped and mind-controlled children, basically mind-controlled to harass people for their facial features, by the traffickers and that want to traffic women to Nazis in order to loot their wealth and basically commit genocide or persecute the Jews. And then there are the people that have Chiron around the last decan of Taurus and the beginning of the decan of Gemini. And so this is a Chiron that is going to have a transiting square the nodes transit. Um, as the nodes approach Aquarius and Leo, Regulus, and later Denebalgadi, so Rao between Formulaut and Denebalgadi, it brings about both the issues of the lack of orgasmic birthing that created all of that dumbfuckery, Genesis itself, the scriptures, that are really things that not only Jewish traditions but the Roman Catholic Church, um, that eventually everybody converts to Roman Catholic. It's kind of like the Jews fear the Inquisition, they convert to Huguenots and Calvinists, and then Lutheran, and then they fear the Inquisition, so they convert to Catholicism. But the Inquisition is only stopped where there is orgasmic birthing, instead of seeing purity by raping children, and calling it wedding at puberty, which is a form of bride trade. And what is called the natural election, which means that the the it's basically a justification of the killing of the women that did not agree, um, with trafficking and raping rings, and using that to wealth confiscate by raping. Um, Now, those chirons at the end decan of Taurus and beginning decan of Gemini are to do with ritual abuse of rape, mind control, and trade. And their objective is to confiscate the wealth so that people will sort of like own nothing and be happy. Now, the Chiron Taurus says, let's see when does Chiron ingress to Taurus. Are going to begin the Chiron returns, and it begins with an opening nodes of the nodes beginning to square the late Taurus Chirons. And they begin, first of all, to square the early Gemini Chirons, which is also a sign of trade. And Gemini is to do with Alcyone, that was about unconditional love regardless of the form. And this is kind of like in semi-sextile to this end decan of Aries, where we could see how, let's say, women that grew up in societies where there's no orgasmic birthing, they had to be dominant to ward off the rapists, and it created character. So it is also something that might be seen in the facial features, where along the years they had to ward off men traffickers, men that were raping young girls and calling it marriage. And they're only, and to be able to relax into an environment where a woman can basically give birth orgasmically requires a different society. And different societies also have different beauty standards. And this could be where the Chiron Alcyons have to do with basically incarnating in multiple universes, and those that are surrounding power um, wanted the looks or the beauty, um, and those that are um, not surrounding power, they couldn't show themselves um, in the beautiful form because of the society made them look like crocodile when they were not loved. Okay, think about the facial features of person that is in society, that is bullying society and so on, and then it's difficult, even the room is messy,
It's difficult for them to take care of themselves and so on. It's not because they don't love themselves, but the society is weighing down on the every structure. Whereas if they would be in an environment that is loving, suddenly even the, I don't know, slightly bigger nose or slightly bigger ears or round eyes um, would mix into the overall atmosphere of glow of being loved, and then they would begin to be, people will begin to see them as beautiful, because to begin with they saw them as beautiful. And it's sort of regardless of their form, but actually if we think about composition and we think about, I mean, it's true. Anybody that took a photo knows that there is composition and there is lighting, but there is also the inner glow, and that is depending on an environment that is in a bullying environment. People might be bluntly beautiful, but they would be um, like they would not enjoy the process of, let's say, of their own beauty. For example, a song by Emily Autumn that says, Thanks God I'm pretty," and talking about the sexual harassment, or the occasional champagne I never asked for, the occasional admissions to a city little bar, and so on. Um, okay, and it's kind of like Chiron Alcyone can give, and for people who have early Chiron Geminis, it can give a little bit of only being seen as beautiful in an environment that is actually loving. So the beauty is not a commodity. And this is a person where it's kind of like people would try to devalue them so that they would need compliments for people and in settings that are trafficking or sex trading. And with Alcyone, it has kind of like a different wisdom. It's kind of like, no, I need to be in an environment where I'm loved regardless of my form, and then when I'm honored and loved, then I can show up as the most beautiful. But that has to be sustainable, that has to be constant. And it basically negates human trait when I think about it. Only now, when Uranus goes over Alcyone, I have this gnosis. We also have to remember that the stories that we have of Alcyone, the girl was turned into a dove. And this is where Uranus, Sedna go through and several in society where the guy has love, and then but the girl will have to be turned into a dove. There will be mass deaths. There would be a lot of disasters, because um, it shows a society of human trait that degrades the feminine. And this is a different. It trines Al-Qaeda, which is besieging of cities. Profitable cities become besieged and traffic and the bombed cities, basically the concentration camps, become bombed, um, which is euthanasia to the people that are there and cannot get out. And um, but to antidote that, we need to abolish that type of bullying, and this is in conjuncting the this is actually trining that last decan of Capricorn, where um, where the children voted out, they jumped off high buildings, opting out of the life within the human traders that rape the boys, let's say, and get them to harass people for their physiognomy or whatnot, to try to traffic. מאמי, לא יודעת. יכול להיות. אם שתינו לא היינו בבית, יכול להיות. אוקיי. זה לא אני בכל אופן.
אני יודעת שזה לא.
So, כן. So this is where, mommy, I'm recording. And those things are basically funded by classified projects, and this is where they're done to loot wealth and confiscate wealth. And then they try to control the population or traffic the population and blame the trafficked people for being traitors. Let's say that the women that were raped and trafficked to the Nazis were blamed for being traitors and humiliated. And of course the Jews that blame those women will not have yield to their investments. Yeah. Okay. כן.